Hey, good morning. It is Tuesday. That means I'm Gabe DeArmond, which actually I am every day. But what Tuesday means is we talk recruiting and Mizzou with Sean Williams for about 20, 30 minutes before we go over and see Eli Drinkwitz and talk about Missouri football. So we're going to do that in just a minute. Going to bring Sean in and talk some Mizzou recruiting. We'll take your questions, comments. If you've got them, feel free at any point to throw them in the comments section, hit the like button, do all the things we ask you to do every week. We will catch up to your questions and comments as we go along in the show. But first, want to make sure that you know about Brandon Barnes at USA Mortgage. There he is, or at least his picture just to the left of me on your screen. Brandon is a former Mizzou football player, played some linebacker, played some safety at Missouri back in the early 2000s. He is now the best guy to go to in the mortgage game in the state of Missouri. He's located in Columbia, but he can help you out anywhere across the state if you give him a call at 573-818-2772 or on his cell at 573-590-0001. You can go to showmemortgage.com and get yourself an online quote if you need a refi, if you are looking to buy a new house, whatever you need to do. Just give Brandon the first shot. He's going to take care of you. And, hey, mention to him that you heard about it on our show. He's sometimes on our message boards trying to fix Missouri's defense, which neither he or anybody else has been able to do quite yet. So Sean Williams joins us now, and the answer to that is obviously in recruiting, right? You can't do it. I can't do it. So Eli Drinkwitz better go find himself some players, I guess.
Yeah, I hope you're not asking me for an answer on the defense. I couldn't give you one either. So yeah, it's been pretty disappointing so far. Obviously, with Wilkes coming in, so yeah, you would expect a little bit more, but we'll see what happens. Maybe they can get it together through the season. Maybe Tennessee is just what the doctor ordered, but we'll find out.
Yeah, I mean, it's not making Missouri fans feel any worse that Trey Williams is the SEC Defensive Lineman of the Week and that Josh Heupel's coming in here with an offense this week. So everybody feels great about that. So.
Yeah, that like if Tennessee comes into Missouri and delivers a win, that would definitely be a sting to the Missouri fans. So it's an interesting game to check out on Saturday for sure for a lot of reasons.
No question. I'll be interested to see if this is a weekend that Missouri starts to bring some kids in. Obviously, that's kind of information we try to gather throughout the week. We don't know at this point of any official visitors. I'm sure some of the commitments will be in town for unofficial visits, but that's something we'll figure out through the week. At 11 a.m. makes it a little tougher, right? Kids play on Friday night. You almost, with an 11 a.m. game, you almost have to be an in-state kid to come check out this game. I wouldn't expect a lot of kids from elsewhere.
Yeah, unless, like I said, unless they have a bye week, and we were talking about it last week, Sam Horn's coming in for the North Texas game. That's one of the reasons he's coming in that weekend because his team does have a bye week, so he can't make that happen. So there's possibilities out there. But, yeah, we don't really know off the top of our heads. We'll figure it out later in the week who's going to come in. So
yeah, and speaking of the North Texas game, look, we'll just I assume for the next 3 Tuesdays what we're going to do is just talk about Luther Burden the whole time. I believe it was reported, I don't know if it was reported from him, but it was reported that he is talking about coming in for that North Texas game on an unofficial visit, which we talked about on this show last week. I'd like to think that Eli Drinkwitz and Casey Woods were just watching the show and said, you know what, Gabe and Sean had a pretty good idea. We should bring Luther in the same weekend that Sam Horn's in town.
Yeah, I would hope we could get some kickback on that, on those ideas. I mean, we're just throwing them out there. We're giving them great ideas. And, we said it last week, and we were talking about it, and, I felt really good about it. I mean, like, it makes sense because, look, you've got a date set now for October 19th, right? That hasn't changed, right?
I mean, it hasn't changed yet. That doesn't mean it won't.
Okay. Right, but, I mean, you've got a date. Obviously, he is taking an official to Georgia in a couple weeks. So there's a little bit of buzz with the Bulldogs. Hey, they're going to get an official visit. So there's a little bit of momentum, supposed momentum there. I mean, look, we don't know that. I mean, he's just taking an official there. That's cool. He's been to Missouri quite a few times this summer, this spring, and this season so far. I mean, if you can get him to come in for that North Texas game, hang out with Sam Horn that weekend, I mean, that would be big. That would be huge just going into his announcement. So, I mean, we talked about it all last week. It makes perfect sense. Hey, throw the ball, do a little pass and catch with Sam Horn, and see how you feel, and see if that's who you want to play for.
Yeah, this is the show where we just speak things into existence. So if Sean just says Luther Burden's coming to Missouri, hey, by this time next week, you never know. So, Sean, I'll leave that open for you if you want to jump on that.
I would think Missouri coaches will sign us to a pretty sweet NIL deal if we made that
Right.
happen, right?
Right. But no, in all reality, this is, I mean, this is right now the only real thing there is to talk about with Missouri recruiting, and it's football wise, and it's what everybody's excited about. But it's kind of an interesting psychology study, like you were talking about. All we've seen is Luther Burden's taking an official visit to Georgia on October 16th, which we've literally known for weeks, if not months. And
Right.
there are a lot of people now because that seems more likely, I guess, to happen than they thought it was a month ago when we already knew it was happening, who are convincing themselves that this is bad news for Missouri. And look, we've said all along, it's not a done deal. We don't know. We're not saying there's no chance Luther Burden goes to Georgia. But so far as we know, also, nothing really has significantly changed in this thing other than there's not a whole lot of news out there, so people invent scenarios in their own minds.
Right, and that's what recruiting's mostly about, especially
Right.
in these high-profile situations. It's inventing and creating storylines in your mind, and being paranoid. And some fans wanting to maybe look, guys, don't jump off a bridge, anything like that. It's just college football recruiting, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Lots of things can happen. Obviously, we've talked about this. Luther's a high-profile kid. We see it a lot with these high-profile kids. Paranoia ensues whenever commitment dates are announced and official visits happen before that. And it's easy for a lot of people on the outside not following Luther Burden's recruiting process very closely, to all of a sudden say, oh well, he's going to visit Georgia the weekend before he announces his decision. They probably got a lot of momentum, but when you do a little bit of research, you realize how many times he's come to Missouri. And I think you can kind of maybe say that Alabama's on the outside looking in. So,
Yeah,
I
it
mean, they're
seems
kind
that
of,
way.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's out there in left field. So, I mean, we really think this is a Missouri Georgia race right now. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like you said, I mean, if you don't follow it and, you kind of start paying attention to it in the last week or so when the news is coming out, you kind of form these hypotheses in your mind. But if you've been following it the whole time, you've known that it's pretty much been Missouri, Georgia
Yeah.
since he decommitted from Oklahoma.
And
So,
the only thing I think could change that is if suddenly we do see news that he's going to take a visit to Tuscaloosa, that changes things because I know his team went down there for a 7-on-7 thing this summer, which actually ended up getting rained out. And from what I was told, he never even met Nick Saban on that visit. So Alabama seems to me to kind of be one that's in there because, hey, we need a third school, right? And
right.
Alabama makes sense and all that. And if you're Missouri or Georgia, you want Alabama to be in there because now if you get him, you can say, hey, we beat out Alabama for a guy, which is good news. And, it's interesting, and I hope Missouri fans don't take this the wrong way, but Missouri fans' reaction to a recruitment like this is quite a bit different than Georgia fans or Alabama fans or even Oklahoma fans because Missouri fans don't get in top threes like this every year, right? If we're being honest,
Right.
Georgia, Alabama, even Oklahoma, they recruit Luther Burden every single year. So they're a little more used to how different the process is with the number 6 kid in the country. Whereas Missouri fans are a little more used to maybe kids who are making early decisions and it isn't broken down all the time and all that. So I think it's just a little a little different situation for Missouri fans, and maybe they aren't as used to reacting to something like this. And the other part of it is, guess what? If Luther Burden doesn't go to Georgia, they'll go get another Luther Burden type, right? It's not that they don't want him, but the
Mhm.
backup plans are probably closer to Luther Burden than Missouri's backup plans are.
So I think essentially what you just said is that Missouri fans are a lot more paranoid than
I
Georgia
did
fans
not
in this
say that.
scenario.
I did not say that. Less experienced at finding themselves in this situation. How's that?
Totally agree. I mean, this is like, for Georgia and Alabama fans, they're numb to this experience. They're always in it for top guys. And, Missouri's not, so it's very rare that they're in it for a top guy, 5-star guy like Luther Burden. So, yeah, it's going to be a little bit more I guess Missouri fans will be a little bit more edgy and react a little bit different when on this recruiting process. Whenever things come out, it's like, oh well, somebody just put in a future cast for Georgia. Like strike up the paranoia ban. So and we just don't know what's going to happen. A lot, like I said, look, hey, there's a date. He's going to take an official. He'll probably come to Missouri again for the North Texas game that weekend. Hopefully, we'll see. But there's still a lot that can happen before the 19th.
So let's talk about these future casting crystal balls and all that. And don't get me wrong, it was a great PR thing that 24/7 first came up with a few years ago, and now Rivals is doing it, and I'm sure On 3 will have a similar thing. Great PR. Those things are they really don't mean much. I mean, if you are covering some program that's not Missouri or Georgia, I don't know, throw in a crystal ball pick for Luther Burden to go somewhere. People can talk about it. You don't really care if you're right or wrong. They're as meaningful as the AP Top 25 poll is in week 5 of the football season, right? It's fine. You can talk about it on message boards. But
right.
The crystal ball just, I mean, if I cared about it, I could go, I only make crystal ball picks for kids that are Missouri's involved with. But I don't know if I felt like it. I guess I could go find out a whole bunch of kids Clemson's recruiting and then just randomly pick places I think they're going. It would mean nothing. I know zero about these kids' recruitments.
I agree with you. It's total. I mean, look, it's a great avenue that 247 created for PR purposes, and that's really what it is. It's PR stuff, right? And now, look, I'm not gonna, this isn't really like a diss on 247, but now they have the crystal ball picks where you have confidence levels, and now your confidence level is like a 3. So if you're putting in a 3 confidence level on a crystal ball pick, why even doing it? It's kind of like you're wasting your time, right? So yeah, I mean, these are just our future casts are just. And I'm like you, I pretty much will just bother putting future casts in for teams that I cover, Missouri, Vanderbilt, etc. So I don't really pay much attention to anybody else, and there's a lot of times you'll see, for example, Luther Burden, say he does stick with October 19th, you'll probably see 5 future cast picks come in that morning of his announcement, or 2 hours before his announcement to whoever he's going to, so that's just kind of funny. But and look, it's good PR. When somebody puts in a future cast, what do? They go to our message board, they talk about it. So hey, that's what it is.
I'm actually going to start texting friends of mine at other sites and be like, "Yo, can you just put a future cast in for Luther Burden? I don't care where it is, just put one, because it'll be another thread on our message board, and people will talk about it."
I want somebody to put a future cast in for Luther Burden to Tulsa or something,
Western
and just really mess everything up.
100%. That'd be cool. And like you said, there's going to be a few on that morning. I promise, I'm not putting in a future cast for Luther Burden until I've been told by somebody, look, this is where he's going. And now that could still end up wrong, right? A few years ago, I was legitimately 100% told Vertus Brown is going to Missouri. He will announce for Missouri. So I put in a future cast for Vertus Brown to Missouri, and then he just changed his mind, and he decided he was going to Illinois. So I'm not saying when we put in a future cast for Luther Burden, that means he's going to that place. But I'm not putting one in before I've been told he's going to that place.
For our sake, because we are planning to be at Luther Burden's announcement, I hope he does not pull a Vertus Brown. And I'm not talking about flipping his commitment. I'm talking about answering questions from middle school, elementary school kids. It takes 45 minutes before he announces his decision. So I hope for our sake, on that day, if me and you are there, that does not happen. It's pretty quick. It's pretty easy. We get down to business pretty quick.
And I want to be clear, because people will have it in their minds that, oh, well, Gabe and Sean are planning to go. That means he's picking Missouri. I mean, we're going because this is a huge deal, and we need to be there if he does pick Missouri. And if he doesn't pick Missouri, you know what, guys? We're part of a team. I'm going to send the video to Georgia, or I'm going to send the video to Alabama, or wherever he picks.
Tulsa.
Tulsa. At this point, we do not by any means know for sure that he's picking Missouri, but it's a 2-hour drive for me. It's a 4-hour drive for Sean. And the worst case scenario is he picks Missouri and we weren't there. So we're gonna go ahead and be there. And one more on one more thing on Burden, because Freeway JQ had a comment, said Jamison Williams being a St. Louis kid and killing it at wide receiver at Alabama isn't good. I mean, again, I agree that would be a factor in Alabama's favor, but he hasn't visited Alabama. Nobody really views Alabama as a legitimate option here. So Jamison Williams can want Luther Burden at Alabama all he wants, and Luther Burden can want to play with Jamison Williams all he wants, but there's really no indication that's the case.
Right. It's like you said, that might change if he happens to go to Alabama between now and when he decides, and that conversation and our topics of conversation to change. But for right now, I mean, we had no reason to really think Alabama's really in this. It's going to, it's Georgia, Missouri until things change and he actually goes there between now and his decision date.
And my favorite thing about recruiting processes like this are always the discussions about, us, middle-aged men trying to project what is important to 18-year-old Luther Burden. And, well, I think he's going to go here because of this and this and this. Look, the truth is we have no idea, but, I mean, the idea that, well, Missouri lost to BC, and what if Missouri's 2-3 and Georgia's 7-0? Like, that can't be good. Look, if it's about winning football games and about winning national titles, Luther Burden ain't coming to Missouri. They're not in his top 3 if that's what it's about. He's already going to either Georgia or Alabama if that's the case.
Right. And, you look at it, too. I mean, look, you can flip that script, too. Missouri's already in his top 3. Okay, well, he goes to Georgia or Alabama, he's competing for national titles, comes to Missouri, he can play right away, and Georgia, Alabama, he might have to, he might not have the opportunity to play right away. I know he's really good, but look, there's a lot of really good players on those rosters right there, and whereas Missouri, he can come in and make an impact right away and help kind of change the trajectory of the program.
So here on Luther Burden Hour, I feel like we've covered it all. I don't know. Is there something else? Do we need to talk about what wristbands he wore to school today? What color his socks are?
Well, that's another great reason, because now in every game from here until October 19th, we're going to be talking about, hey, what kind of gloves is he wearing? What kind of wristbands is he wearing? What kind of socks is he wearing?
If I'm Luther Burden, I'm 100% just screwing with people. Like, I'm buying myself a Michigan headband, an Arizona State wristband, a Tulane towel.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I like the Green Wave logo.
It is.
You got the wave with the fist.
Yes.
I mean, you can't beat that.
It is a good logo. I'm surprised they don't get more 5 stars down there, to be quite honest with you. But real quick, Sean, I'm going to hit on a couple basketball things after I let you go. But I don't know, anything else football-wise we feel like is there that needs to be discussed before we obviously kind of put together a visit list for Friday morning?
I mean, I know you were out a lot last week, but you did notice that Missouri did offer a 2022 running back that decommitted from Southern Cal. So, yeah.
Yeah.
DeAnthony Gadsden. So that's kind of an intriguing storyline. Missouri offered him. I mean, I think it's the only offer he's gotten since he decommitted from Southern Cal last week. And, yeah, that's kind of intriguing that they're kind of looking for another running back in this class. Obviously, they got Tavares Jones, and Gadsden's kind of he's been committed to Southern Cal for the last 3 months. He picked them over Colorado and Texas back in the summer, and obviously, you kind of think, well, this kid's from Newton, Texas. He's, Texas can look at him. Look, it's going to be a situation. It's going to be similar to Tavares Jones. Right. Texas is full. They're not going to take another running back unless things change, between now and signing day or whatever. So kind of curious to see if any other schools get involved with him. Kind of curious to see, I'm sure the other schools that were involved with him, he had like 25 offers. So, I mean, I'm sure there's other schools that have offered him previously that have kind of reached out. So kind of an intriguing storyline to look at. He's not talking, so don't really have a lot of information other than what has previously happened to him. But yeah, kind of an intriguing storyline that Missouri is throwing out another offer to a 2022 running back.
So do you think from the Missouri side it's, hey, we want another running back in this class, or do you think it's, hey, we want another running back in this class if it's that kid?
I think it's if it's that kid.
Yeah. Just he's
so.
Good enough that you can't not take a shot.
Yeah, I mean that's just me guessing. I think it's just kind of odd that they would just offer him after he decommitted, and they haven't really offered anybody else. So does it make me think that they're really openly looking for one? But I think maybe they looked at his film and just been like, hey man, this guy's really good. Let's throw out an offer.
See what
Maybe
happens.
there's obviously maybe some connections there. Maybe see if we can get him on campus, see what happens. So
Yep. All right, good deal, Sean. We'll talk to you next Tuesday. We'll talk about Luther Burden, I bet, and probably really try to change it up a little bit. Talk about who was in town this weekend, maybe.
that'll work.
Yeah, all right, have a good one. Sean Williams joining us, and we're gonna let him go. I'll finish up with some basketball stuff here, certainly for you guys. But real quick before we jump to that, I want to remind you one more time about Brandon Barnes at USA Mortgage. All his contact information, email, website, 2 phone numbers right there. We tag him on Twitter in the show every Tuesday when we release it. So if that's maybe your preferred method of communication, you can reach out to Brandon there. But he is going to be your guy for any needs you have with your mortgage, whether that's a refinance, whether you're building a house, whatever you're doing. Brandon is going to provide you great customer service all over the state of Missouri. He's located in Columbia, but it doesn't matter where you're at in Missouri. Maybe you're building a house in Trenton, Missouri. Maybe you want to do that. So hit up Brandon Barnes, hit up Andy Hill for recommendations on where to live in Trenton, and then hit up Brandon Barnes for the financial aspect of it, and just keep it all here in the Mizzou family when you do that. But do wanted to hit, Jake jumped in early with a basketball question, and so wanted to get to that. Any news on Justin McBride for basketball in 2023? There was some chatter he was leaning to Mizzou. That's what it is right now. It's chatter. We haven't talked to Justin in the last couple days. There certainly is a belief that Missouri's in pretty good shape for him. He's a 2023 forward. He goes to Oak Hill in Virginia, I believe. And he's got some family ties to Columbia. I believe his grandfather, maybe it was in Columbia. And so there are some ties to Mizzou. They know Conzo Martin. There's some talk that Missouri might be in good shape for him. Again, he's a 2023 kid. It's 14 months before he could sign. So who knows, if he is planning to make a commitment anytime soon. But it is a name to watch for 2023. The other basketball news is I believe it's on Thursday. Missouri is involved. They are in the top 2 for a 2022 kid. We believe it's the last high school kid they would really take in this class, other than perhaps Mark Mitchell, who's going to be not perhaps they would take Mark Mitchell if he wanted to commit. He is visiting here in a couple of weeks. Actually, that same weekend that Sam Horn and Luther Burden are supposed to be in town. But September 30th at noon, Robert Jennings is set to make an announcement. He visited Mizzou a few weeks ago. He's also visited, I think, Ole Miss. I know he's visited Texas Tech, and there was one other, might have been SMU in there. But it's Missouri and Texas Tech are the top 2 for Robert Jennings. And the feeling right now is that he's probably headed to Lubbock. Missouri's in it. We will certainly be monitoring things on Thursday afternoon. It's not impossible that he decides to commit to Mizzou, but our information, our feeling right now is that he'll end up at Texas Tech. So that would leave basically Mark Mitchell as, hey, it's either Mark Mitchell or no more high school players. He visits on October 9th. Most people think he's going to Duke or UCLA. Duke was the leader. UCLA seems to have made up some ground in that race lately, but Missouri and Kansas are both going to get one more shot. He's a top 15 kid in the country and would certainly be a huge get for Conzo Martin and staff. We don't think it's going to happen, but we are certainly going to follow that, and we'll follow up after his visit. So that's kind of where we stand on hoops. Appreciate you guys joining us. Before you do log off here, please do hit the like button on the show, subscribe to the channel. Those things help the show be a little bit more visible, help some more people see us, and that's always a good thing. We appreciate you guys being here. Mitchell Forty and I tomorrow afternoon will be back with the 573 report. We'll look ahead a little bit to Tennessee. We'll dive in fully to that Tennessee matchup on Thursday on our opposition research show. Then we'll have the picks on Friday and game day on Saturday. So that's the schedule here all week. Thanks for being a part of it, guys, and we will catch up.